Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're in our second installment of what a man should be. And we have this now in the context of what a man should be in marriage. And I think the first thing that we need to start out with is that God created woman to be a partner to a man because a man needed a helper. He needed a partner. He needed someone to do life with, because it's not good for a person to be alone. This is true throughout the entire Bible, that it's not good for people to be alone. We need a sense of community. That is the nature of humans in general, is we need a sense of community. And so the Bible says that God made woman from a rib of a man, and the man said that this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she has been taken from man. This is why a man leaves his mother and father and becomes one flesh with his wife. You know, these are very important things to think about because it tells us how we should do marriage. If you are one flesh with someone, then why would you hurt yourself? If you hurt yourself, it's like hurting that person. And I've had to learn throughout this last year, some lessons, because as I've gotten older, there's been new tests in my life. I've talked about what sacrificial love is, and I've talked about marriage and what it entails in past episodes. But even still, I had a new challenge this year where I had to put my wife above family. And, it's not easy, but you're called in your covenant, a lifelong covenant with your wife, mind you, that you are to forsake all others. It doesn't mean be cruel to all others, but you do have to put your wife first. Now, people say, what about the kids? No, you put your wife ahead of your kids. It's an unpopular comment. But if you want to have a successful marriage, you put your wife, or your wife puts the husband before the kids. That doesn't mean neglect the kids. That means that you love them first and make sure they're taken care of. And see, what happens is we want to jump to the end of the book all the time so we can make assumptions. If you take care of your wife, then you are going to end up taking care of your kids more efficiently. And here's why. Because in most marriages, women do the hard work. Men are just the donors. But women have to give birth. They have to raise this small, tiny human in their belly for 9 months. That builds a bond. And then beyond that, then there's, the nourishment that comes from a mother, milk, if a woman is breastfeeding. So, and on top of that, most of the time a man can't do that unless he gets, unless there's pumped milk. But for the most part, a lot of times, a lot of women like to breastfeed because it builds a bond. And there's a lot to this. There's oxytocin that builds this connection between a woman and their child. There's hormones that are actually released in this process that help the bonding. So, but this makes the child very important. So if a man truly loves his wife and is taking care of his wife first, then he's going to realize that he wants to take care of the things that are important to her. So even though you don't like the comment saying that a man and a woman should put each other first before the kids, in all actuality, the kids get taken care of in a better way because there's no resentment. And believe it or not, I know not everybody's the same, but there is resentment in marriages. If we're being really honest, a lot of times a man gets resentful of the kids because, unfortunately, we're not all mature. we need that affection from our spouse. We need that bonding time too. And men are very, very prone to wanting it, quite a bit more than the woman, because their attention is on the children. And they have that bonding of this newborn, and their mother instincts kicked in. And fathers have father instincts, but at the same time, a lot of times they get a little jealous of the children because the woman overdotes on the children, overcompensates. And so we have to remember that we are each other's nourishment in a marriage. And that's why a man and woman come first. We have to make sure that we nourish each other in order to create a stable foundation. If you have a stable foundation or good soil, then you are going to have a house or a family unit that is built very strong. And from the other analogy, if you have good soil, then that is going to nourish the family unit. So we have to remember that. A man's role is also to sacrifice. Love your wife sacrificially, gentlemen, because Ephesians says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. See, a good leader is a good follower. And the reason why is because if you're a good follower, you understand what goes into the job, which makes you a more efficient leader. Christ understood the temptations and the struggles that we have as humans, and he is God. So he has that wisdom of God within him as well. So he knows, he led his disciples in such a way to be an example of what a good leader is, and that it was largely through service. So we have to give ourselves up for our wives in the same way. Colossians 3:19 says, husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. In the previous, discussion of what is a man, we talked about a man's predisposition to be physical. And we need to make sure that we temper that. We need to learn to not be reactive. This is something to teach us to better live our lives in wisdom, because anger and harshness and harsh words detract from wisdom. It makes you stupider, because you have all these default words that you can use, and they're harsh, they're mean, and to be honest, they're very low with knowledge. They're dumb words to use. You don't have to use a cuss word. You can describe yourself perfectly well with and how you're feeling without cussing. We also have to lead with humility. This is just a throwback to what a good leader is. Ephesians 5:23 says the husband is described as the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. So women, support your husbands. Don't throw them out there by themselves. You're their helpmate. You're their grounding point. A lot of times we find that proper relationships between husbands and wives, the husbands and wives are kind of opposite. They're not exactly alike. And so through these differences, you teach each other. A good example is my wife has ADHD. I ground her. You could say in our relationship, she's kind of the balloon in some situations, and I ground her, especially emotionally. But here's the kicker, man. I'm a spender. Her ADHD is her superpower with doing money, because she is hyper focused on it and thinks it through quite a bit. So she helps me learn how to be better with managing my money. So we offset each other. It's frustrating. It's hard work, but it pays off. We have to be the spiritual leaders as well. Ephesians 5:26-27 says, Christ sacrifices the church. Husbands are called to encourage their wives towards spiritual growth. You hear that? That means we got to get in the word, gentlemen. That means that we have got to be spiritual leaders in our family. Sometimes we've got to go, hey, this is not right. We're not going to do it this way. This isn't going to turn out good, because men are good, warrior-minded people. War doesn't always have to be with physical conflict. War can be tackling a struggle, because men are singular in mind, where women are very, very multi-minded. Women, their brains are going all the time. Men do have a great ability of compartmentalizing and singling out the task and staying on just that task. And that's a good thing. Honor and value your wife. 1 Peter 3:7 says, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way. Show honor so that your prayers may not be hindered. So it's saying, hey, let's apply logic. Men are not emotional creatures. So men are uniquely qualified to handle very emotional issues without letting a lot of noise fade in. That's one of our superpowers. But we have to be good listeners too. Our wives need us to listen. They need us to be good listeners. It's not that we can't talk, but we need to be good listeners. If we're not good listeners, then our wife feels like she is not getting the attention that she needs to help her make good decisions. She needs a sounding board. Sometimes we do too, but most of all, we have that ability to single out things where women are a little lighter in that area. I'm not saying they can't, ladies. I'm just saying that men are born more adept to it. We're being very general here. So I'm not jumping into what everybody's different personality traits are. What I am saying is that what men are predisposed to versus women. All right. I get we are all individuals, but this is a good overview and a good guideline. Also, men are to provide and protect. 1 Timothy 5:8 says a man should care for his household. And Ephesians 5:28 says husbands should nourish and cherish their wives. Do you see this reoccurring theme here? The Bible is telling us to cherish our wives and take care of them. I have often said that if a man treats his wife like a piece of gold, because she is, and a woman treats her man like he is a precious piece of gold, that their relationship will flourish, because they're treating each other with mutual respect and admiration. This is necessary. But for men, you got to understand that a lot of times when women say they don't feel safe, it's because they don't feel safe emotionally. I've seen this a lot in my divorced friends, where their wives don't feel safe emotionally. And the reason why is they feel like they can't express how they're feeling without there being a backlash. Men, be good listeners and try to come back with common sense and rational answers. Don't yell at them. Don't get mad because your wife is expressing how she feels about something. Don't get mad. Try to add some help to it instead of being downing them or talking down to them. You're not better than them just because you're a man and she's a woman. That's not what we're saying here. Women are not second-class citizens. We have to remember that. The 1920s and 1940s and all those old ways of thinking, they were wrong. They were absolutely wrong. We need to work on a partnership with our spouses. That goes for you too, ladies. You have to work on that partnership. But I think that a woman needs partnership a lot. Men tend to be solitary individuals. So women really do need it. So men, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You know, another thing is to be faithful and committed. This is a part of being safe, creating safety for your wife. She doesn't want to feel like you're going to step out on her. So don't tell her she looks bad in this, that, or the other. Be honest. Don't lie, but don't be a jerk. Genesis 2:24 says, a man cleaves to his wife. This is a lifelong commitment. All right, gentlemen. So get with the program and be good to your wives. Don't say stupid things that are mean. Another thing, Malachi 2:14 through 16 says, God condemns unfaithfulness in marriage. Sorry. You step out on your wife, you are directly ticking off God. I wouldn't want to be that person. You have to build on your partnerships too. Ephesians 5:31 says, husbands and wives become one flesh. Just like it says in there. So make sure that you're looking at your wife as if she is a part of you. All right. And Ecclesiastes 4:9 through 12, two are better than one. They strengthen each other. This goes back to the iron sharpens iron philosophy. If you surround yourself with people who are not there to build you up or to help you improve, then you're going to regress. Our wives are that for us. My wife and I, don't get me wrong, we have our tiffs. That's normal. We have even come up to the point of questioning, should we be married earlier in our marriage? But one thing, if you are building your wife up and your wife is building you up, guess what? You gain something that is time tested. And what happens with time tested things is they grow strong. And if you're strong with your wife, you have a trust that goes beyond physical intimacy. It goes into mental intimacy. See, we can't always, we need to fall in love with our wives for who they are, not how they look all the time. I mean, attraction's important, don't get me wrong, but you also have to have mental attraction. If you just go off looks all the time, you're going for the skin. And I'll tell you, my wife had a very good friend of mine. I have a few good friends of mine that are single right now, but my wife had one in particular. He had a checklist and he was a good looking dude. Like he was a bodybuilder and all this, but he had this checklist and he had all these limitations that there's nobody who's going to be perfect. There was nobody who was going to meet these standards. And she told him from a female's perspective, drop the checklist and start judging a person on who they are. It took him time. He had to get out of his comfort zone. He had to learn some new things, but he found the love of his life. And guess what? She is not at all what was on that checklist. Yeah, she has faults, but the thing that you got to remember, guys, is you're not perfect. You have your faults too. You forget about the other side of the coin is that women, you put a checklist on them, but what about their checklist? You have to remember, there's some things that are wrong with you too. Marriage is a compromise and finding something deeper. So men, know your roles. Act like men. Learn that you need to show wisdom over everything else. Lead with wisdom and lead with love. Because if you have good wisdom, then you're going to have good love. All right, guys. I look forward to talking to you next week.